The train station attendant peers at my ticket, then at his screen, his weathered face creasing with confusion. "Miss Anderson, this reservation has already been scanned. About 20 minutes ago." "That's impossible." My fingers fumble with my phone as the anniversary card envelope slips from my grasp, landing face down on the scuffed tile floor. "I have the confirmation right here." The attendant's eyes soften with pity. "Someone else must have used your ticket. The 11:40 to Charleston left on schedule." My heart pounds against my ribs as I bend to retrieve the envelope. Inside is the handwritten note detailing every moment of the surprise anniversary trip I've spent months planning for my parents' 35th. The bistro reservations, the Sunset Harbor cruise, all of it meticulously arranged during late nights after my regular shifts ended. My phone buzzes. "Ezra, Wynne's never seen fall colors down south. You always say summer's not your thing. Hope it's okay, figured it just made sense." The message blurs as I stare at it. My brother replaced me with his girlfriend. Without asking, without warning. I glance up at the large station clock, 11:58. The train left 18 minutes ago, carrying my parents, my brother, and his girlfriend Wynne to the trip I had created. 2 months of overtime shifts blur in my memory. The weekend sacrificed to earn the extra $7,800 for the luxury package. I had nearly cried when I found Le Petit Jardin, the exact French bistro my father had described from their honeymoon. Your mother's eyes lit up when they brought out that chocolate soufflé. He'd said every anniversary since I was a child. My mother's voice echoes from last Christmas. Ezra's bringing so much excitement to our lives with his new girlfriend, the fond smile she'd given him. The same smile I'd been working to earn for years. My fingers hover over the keyboard. I type carefully, each word deliberate. "You took my seat. That was my gift to them." The response comes instantly. "Don't be dramatic. You can still join us next weekend." The familiar burn of dismissal spreads through my chest. My hands finally stop trembling as I silence my phone and slip it into my pocket. The station noises fade around me as I turn away from the departures board. "Miss, do you need help with another booking?" The attendant calls after me. "Number." My voice sounds steadier than I feel. "There's nothing left to book." 15 minutes later, in the parking lot, I try calling my parents. Neither answers. I open Facebook, and there it is posted 3 minutes ago. My mother, father, Ezra, and a smiling blonde woman I recognize as Wynne from her profile pictures. All 4 beaming from the train platform. My mother's caption reads, "Surprise anniversary trip. So blessed to have our wonderful son and his amazing Wynne along for this special weekend." No mention of who planned it, who paid for it, who was supposed to be there. I sit behind the wheel of my car, not yet turning the key. The weight of my identity and our family settles heavier on my shoulders. I am the steady one, the reliable daughter, the one who doesn't cause waves. Speaking up risks everything, the fragile approval I've spent a lifetime earning, the role I've carefully maintained. But saying nothing means accepting that I am furniture in their lives, useful, necessary, but ultimately replaceable. My phone buzzes again with a text from my mother. "Such a lovely start to the trip. The dining car is serving the most delightful lunch. Wynne knows so much about wine pairings." In that moment, I know they were aware of the switch. They approved it, perhaps even suggested it. The realization doesn't hurt as much as I expected. Instead, a strange clarity washes over me as I start the car. For the first time in years, I'm not rushing to meet someone else's expectations. The afternoon stretches before me, unexpectedly my own. That same day, the notification pings from my phone sound like tiny accusations. I almost ignore them, but habit forces my finger to tap the Facebook icon. My mother has been posting. A lot. The first photo appears on my screen. My parents seated at a restaurant table overlooking Charleston Harbor, champagne flutes raised in a toast. Wynne sits beside them, her blonde hair catching the sunset light, her hand holding aloft one of my handwritten itinerary cards. Celebrating 35 amazing years with the most thoughtful anniversary surprise. So grateful for our amazing children who made this weekend perfect. My fingers tighten around my phone as I physically back away from the screen, as if distance might somehow make the betrayal less real. I scroll through more photos. The harbor cruise I'd booked, the French bistro I'd researched for weeks, the corner table with the harbor view I'd specifically requested. In every image, Wynne occupies the space where I should be standing. Under each post, Wynne has commented, "Happy to be part of your special day," followed by heart emojis. Ezra appears in fewer photos, usually with his arm around Wynne, looking pleased with himself. I set my phone down and press my palms against my kitchen counter. The cold granite grounds me as the room seems to tilt sideways. 4 days later, they return. I hear them before I see them, their voices floating through the front door of the house, my house that I have allowed them to live in rent-free for 5 years. Mora? My mother calls out as they enter. We're home! Come see what Wynne found for you. They settle in my living room like they're returning to their natural habitat. My father sinks into his usual armchair, my mother arranges herself on the sofa, and Ezra drops his duffel bag in the entryway where someone will inevitably trip over it. The living room suddenly feels smaller, as if their presence expands to fill every corner. Look what Wynne picked out for everyone. My mother holds out a small paper bag. Inside are refrigerator magnets with Charleston landmarks. Mine has a palmetto tree. Wasn't that thoughtful? My father beams. She remembered something for each of us. I accept the magnet, running my thumb over its smooth surface. Thanks, I say, though Wynne isn't even here to hear it. You should have seen the spot Wynne found for our anniversary photo, my father continues, pulling out his phone to show me. Right where the harbor meets the city. Perfect lighting. The image shows my parents posed exactly as I had planned, the historic church spire in the background, the harbor water catching the late afternoon light. I had described this exact spot in my planning notes. The whole trip was such a wonderful surprise, my mother says, her voice warm with pleasure. Ezra really outdid himself. I look at my brother, who has the decency to avoid my eyes. Something snaps inside me, and I decide to stop being invisible. I won't let them hurt me anymore. It was my idea, he says, to recreate their honeymoon spot. My idea. The words strike like physical blows. The French bistro I'd spent weeks tracking down, the chocolate soufflé I'd specially arranged, all claimed by my brother with 2 simple words. Wynne wants to plan our 40th too. My mother adds, smiling. Isn't that sweet? She's already talking about a river cruise in Europe. She says 5 years is plenty of time to save up. 5 years. The exact amount of time my parents have lived in my house without contributing to the mortgage or utilities. The time I've spent helping them rebuild after my father's layoff, making sure they didn't lose their dignity or comfort while they got back on their feet. The weight of it all presses down on me, co-signing Ezra's apartment lease when no landlord would take a chance on his spotty employment history. Covering his community college textbooks because he was finding himself. Bailing him out when he lost yet another job because his boss didn't understand his creative process. I stand in the doorway, watching them discuss future plans in my living room, planning more ways to use my resources while erasing my contributions. In their eyes, I'm not a daughter or sister. I'm the steady foundation everyone else builds upon, the reliable backdrop against which their dramas play out. I've got some work to finish, I say, though no one seems particularly concerned when I leave the room. Back in my home office, I open my email and search for the confirmation from the travel agency. There it is, the receipt for $7,800, the entire anniversary package paid in full from my account. Bistro reservations, harbor cruise, hotel suite with champagne service. Every detail I'd planned, every expense I'd covered, every hour I'd worked to make it happen. As I stare at that receipt showing the $7,800 I'd spent to give them their perfect anniversary, I wonder, should I demand the acknowledgement I deserved? Or was it time to stop being their foundation entirely? Speaking up might salvage our relationship, but walking away would protect what little remained of my dignity. The receipt sits on my screen, undeniable proof of what I've given, and what they've taken. The next day, my phone buzzes with a notification. Ezra has tagged me in a photo series titled, Family Traditions Continue. I tap to open it, my coffee cup suspended halfway to my lips. The first image shows Wynne sitting on the wooden swing at Lake Harriet where my father used to push me for hours as a child. The next shows her at Miller's ice cream parlor, eating the butter pecan my grandfather introduced to our family. In the third, she stands beaming beside our parents at the entrance to the community theater where I performed in every summer production until college. Your brother's girlfriend is so sweet. My neighbor Mrs. Lawson mentions when I collect my mail the next morning. Your mother was telling me how Wynne reminds her of you when you were younger but with more spark. She pats my arm. Almost family already, she said. The comment lodges like a splinter under my skin as I sort through bills at my kitchen counter. My phone rings Mom's ringtone. Honey, Wynne has that symposium next month, and I thought she could stay in your guest room. The hotel prices are ridiculous downtown. My guest room? I set down the electric bill. When exactly? That Thursday through Sunday. She won't be any trouble. You'll barely know she's there. I close my eyes, picturing a stranger in my space. I'll have to check my schedule. No need to go to any trouble. She has your spare key already. The words hit like cold water. She has my what? Your father gave her the copy from the hook in our kitchen. For emergencies. Before I can respond, she switches topics to Dad's upcoming doctor's appointment. After we hang up, I sit in the sudden silence of my kitchen. The refrigerators hum abnormally loud. Later that week, I open Instagram to discover Wynne has posted a TikTok of herself in my living room. The fireplace I restored plank by plank after buying this house glows behind her as she performs some dance trend. The logs I stacked on the hearth last fall are burning brightly. My throat tightens at the sight of my grandmother's quilt draped over the arm of the couch where Wynne eventually flops down, laughing at something off camera. Just making myself at home, reads her caption, followed by 3 heart emojis. When I ask Ezra about it the next day, he shrugs. She was cold. The furnace at our place is acting up again. You could have asked. Why? You never minded before when I used your stuff. The memory of my missing circular saw surfaces. Speaking of which, where are my tools from the garage? Borrowed them for a project at work. He grabs a soda from my refrigerator. I'll bring them back sometime. When exactly? He rolls his eyes. Why are you being so uptight lately? That night, I can't sleep. Every time my phone buzzes, I flinch, anticipating another boundary being crossed. At 3 a.m., I pull out my financial records and begin creating a spreadsheet. Line by line, I document every payment I've made to or for my family over the past 5 years. The co-signed lease for Ezra's apartment. The 3 months of rent I covered when he was between jobs. The property taxes on the house my parents live in my house. The car insurance. The medical bills when Dad needed that procedure his insurance wouldn't fully cover. The total at the bottom of the spreadsheet stuns me. $157,840.236. I watch the numbers in disbelief. This is going to end soon. At work the next morning, I stare blankly at structural calculations that usually absorb my full attention. My coworker Carol slides a coffee onto my desk. Earth to Mora, she says, leaning against my cubicle wall. You've been looking at that same beam calculation for 20 minutes. I rub my eyes. Sorry. Family stuff. She studies me for a moment, her weathered face softening. Some people only see your value when they have to pay for what they've been getting for free. The words echo in my head all day. Sunday arrives with its familiar rhythm. I wake early to prep for the monthly dinner I host at my house. My parents arrive at 4, bringing a salad Mom prepared in my kitchen earlier that week without mentioning she'd stopped by. Ezra comes late as usual with a 6-pack of beer that will remain in my refrigerator until next month. We sit around the dining table my grandfather built, passing dishes between us. Mom tastes the roast and nods approvingly. This turned out well, she says, as if surprised. Oh, before I forget, I told Wynne she could host her book club here next Thursday. That back sunroom of yours gets such nice light in the afternoons. My fork freezes halfway to my mouth. You what? Her book club. 6 ladies, very respectable. They're reading that new historical novel everyone's talking about. I set my fork down with deliberate care. Did you ask me if you could offer my home to your son's girlfriend? The table falls silent. Dad's eyes dart between Mom and me. Why would I need to? Mom looks genuinely puzzled. We're family. Something inside me shifts, like the final support beam giving way before collapse. Being family doesn't mean taking me for granted. My voice sounds different, steadier than I expected. It doesn't mean you can give out my keys, use my fireplace, borrow my tools indefinitely, or offer my home to people I barely know without asking. Mora, what's gotten into you? Dad's forehead creases with concern. Reality. I stand up, napkin falling to the floor. I've been subsidizing this family for years, and you all act like it's nothing, like I'm nothing except what I provide. That's not fair, Ezra protests, but his eyes don't meet mine. What's not fair is realizing I don't need to keep sacrificing to be worthy of respect. The words feel like oxygen after years underwater. Not from you, not from anyone. Monday morning, I ask Carol to lunch. Over sandwiches, I explain the situation. I need to establish some boundaries with my parents. I say, picking at my chips. They've been living in my house for 5 years without contributing. You need a formal rental agreement. She doesn't hesitate. I went through this with my sister last year. I can help you draft something. By Wednesday, I have a template. Carol introduces me to Thomas from the commercial division of her real estate office. Market rate for a 3-bedroom in your neighborhood is about $2,100 monthly, he tells me, scrolling through comparable listings on his tablet. Given the current housing shortage, you're actually on the low end with that figure. Unlike my family, both Carol and Thomas ask before using my pens, my chair, my time. The contrast is startling. That evening, I calculate fair market rent, adjusting for utilities and maintenance costs. I print the formal lease adjustment notice, the paper warm and crisp in my hands. Thomas has reviewed it. My property rights are clear. I slide the document into an envelope and write my parents' names on the front. Their names, not Mom and Dad. The pen feels unusually heavy in my hand, but my writing is firm, each letter distinct. I seal the envelope with a single decisive press of my thumb. Tomorrow, everything changes. Next day, I place the leather portfolio containing the lease documents on the kitchen table with the precision of a chess player making a decisive move. My parents glance up from their morning coffee, expressions shifting from casual welcome to cautious confusion. What's this? My father reaches for the folder, but I keep my hand firmly on top. This is a formal lease agreement. My voice remains steady as I open the portfolio and slide the documents toward them. Since you've been living here for 5 years without any formal arrangement, it's time we establish clear terms. My mother's coffee cup clatters against its saucer. A lease? Maura, what are you talking about? This is family. Yes, and family deserves clear boundaries. I methodically explain each term, pointing to the highlighted sections. Rent will be $2,100 monthly, which is actually below market rate for this neighborhood. Utilities will no longer be bundled into our informal arrangement. You'll be responsible for your portion. And any guests staying longer than 2 nights require my approval as the property owner. My father's face transforms from dismissal to concern as I continue. His eyes narrow, then widen as he flips through the pages, pausing on the signature line. This isn't necessary, he says, pushing the papers away. We've always had an understanding. The understanding was that this would be temporary while you got back on your feet after retirement. I tap the final page. It's been 5 years. This is the market rate for this neighborhood. Thomas confirmed it last week. Who's Thomas? My mother's voice rises slightly. My colleague in real estate. I don't elaborate on our friendship or how he helped me draft these documents. Payment is due on the 1st of next month. I stand, gathering my car keys from the counter. I have to get to work. We can discuss this further tonight if you'd like. The front door closes behind me with a satisfying click, leaving them with the reality of what I've just done. 2 days later, my phone rings while I'm reviewing structural plans at my desk. My Aunt Susan's name flashes on the screen. Maura, honey, what's going on with you and your parents? Her voice carries the forced lightness of someone treading carefully. Your mother called me quite upset. Says you've turned cold suddenly, demanding rent after all these years. I take a deep breath. Did she happen to mention why I finally decided to charge them rent? No, just that it came out of nowhere. That you're not yourself lately. Ask her about my parents' anniversary trip, I say, surprising myself with my directness. Ask who planned it, who paid for it, and who ended up going. The silence stretches long enough that I check to see if the call dropped. I see, she finally says. Your mother mentioned something about a lovely trip Ezra arranged. I worked overtime for 2 months to afford that $7,800 package. I found the exact French bistro from their honeymoon. I planned every detail. My voice remains level despite the pressure building in my chest. Then Ezra gave my seat to his girlfriend without asking, and my parents didn't say a word about it. Another silence, but different this time. I had no idea, Maura. Her tone has shifted from concern to sympathetic. That explains quite a bit. After we hang up, I return to my blueprint review, feeling strangely lighter. That evening, my father corners me in the garage as I'm unloading groceries. After all we've done for you, he begins, his voice low and serious. This is how you repay us? Something inside me snaps into perfect clarity. What exactly have you done for me? His face reddens. We raised you. We gave you everything. Let me show you something. I set down the grocery bags and lead him to my home office. From my filing cabinet, I pull a folder labeled Family Support and hand it to him. Inside is an itemized list of every bill I've paid, every loan I've covered, every expense I've shouldered since they moved in, the mortgage payments they've never contributed to, Ezra's community college tuition, the 3 times I paid his rent when he forgot. My father stares at the pages, silent. This totals over $150,000 in 5 years, I say quietly. So yes, please tell me what I'm being ungrateful for. He leaves the room without another word, but I notice he takes the list with him. Next morning, a text arrives from my mother. Your father and I have discussed your proposal. We're willing to pay half the requested rent if you'll return to being part of the family. I stare at the message, the familiar weight of manipulation settling on my shoulders. Should I compromise for peace, or stand firm on my new boundaries? That afternoon, Carol from work notices me staring at my phone during lunch. Family drama? She asks, sliding into the chair across from me. When I explain the counter-offer, she nods knowingly. They're hoping you'll feel guilty enough to cave. Want to practice some responses? For the next half hour, Carol role-plays various emotional appeals my parents might make. Each time, I practice responding calmly, without defensiveness or apology. Remember, she says as we pack up, they're counting on you reacting emotionally. That's how they've always gotten their way before. Later that evening, Thomas calls to check in. How did they take the lease? About as well as expected, I say, settling onto my porch swing. They've counter-offered half rent in exchange for my compliance. I can be there when they come to discuss it, he offers. Sometimes having a neutral third party prevents manipulation. His support, along with Carol's, reinforces my conviction. My boundaries aren't unreasonable, they're necessary. 2 days later, Ezra shows up at my door without Wynne. His usual confident smile is replaced by something more tentative. Got a minute? He asks, hands in his pockets like when we were kids, and he wanted to admit breaking something. I thought maybe we could talk, like we used to. I notice the shadows under his eyes, the slight dishevelment of his usually perfect hair. Sure, I say, stepping back to let him in, noticing the absence of Wynne's usual posts tagging him on Instagram, the growing strain visible in his recent photos. My phone buzzes with a text from my father. Family meeting tomorrow at 6. We need to discuss recent misunderstandings. I set the phone face down on the counter and turn to my brother, waiting to hear what he has to say. Tomorrow, the doorbell chimes at precisely 6 o'clock. I smooth my hands over the stack of documents on the coffee table before crossing to the entryway. When I open the door, my mother thrusts a glass dish toward me, the familiar scent of butterscotch pudding wafting upward. Your favorite? She announces, her smile too bright, too forced. Just like I used to make for your birthday. Behind her, my father shifts from foot to foot, his gaze darting toward the manila folder tucked under my arm. Ezra trails in last, hands jammed in his pockets, looking everywhere but at me. I lead them into the living room, the same space where they've lived rent-free for 5 years. The same space where I've disappeared into the background of my own life. We brought dessert, my mother says, setting the pudding on the coffee table, deliberately covering the corner of my lease papers. Let's enjoy that first, shall we? My father clears his throat. Look, honey, we've been talking. This whole rent situation, it's just a misunderstanding. We thought maybe half the amount you proposed, my mother interjects, folding her hands in her lap. Put this unpleasantness behind us. Get back to being a family. That worked for everyone before, Ezra adds, finally looking up. Why change things now? My father leans forward, his voice dropping. Besides, don't forget our contribution to this house. We helped you with the down payment. The lie hangs in the air between us. They've never contributed a dime. I don't respond immediately. Instead, I reach for the accordion folder beside me, unfold it across my lap, and begin removing documents one by one. This is my mortgage, I say, placing the paper on the table. Solely in my name. The down payment came from my savings account. I set down bank statements spanning 5 years. Here's every deposit and withdrawal. My mother's mouth opens, but I continue without pause. This folder contains receipts for family expenses I've covered. I flip it open to reveal hundreds of neatly organized slips. Ezra's community college tuition, Dad's medical bills after the insurance gap, Mom's car repairs, the new water heater last winter, the property taxes every year. I pull out a leather-bound notebook. My maintenance log showing I've been solely responsible for the property upkeep. Finally, I place the anniversary trip receipt beside a printed screenshot of my mother's Facebook post. $7,800 for the trip Wynne took my place on. The trip that became my gift from Ezra. My voice remains steady. I'm not angry that you took my gift. I'm setting boundaries because you didn't even notice you'd taken anything at all. The silence in the room grows thick enough to touch. My mother looks down at her hands. My father stares at the evidence of his dependence spread across the coffee table. We always appreciated, my mother begins. Appreciation isn't the same as respect, I say. You've been living in my home for 5 years without contributing. You've taken my financial support while praising Ezra for his potential. You replaced me on a trip I spent months planning and didn't think I'd mind. Ezra shifts uncomfortably on the couch. Wynne left me, he blurts out, last week. Said I wasn't ambitious enough. That I needed to get my act together. The irony almost makes me laugh. Almost. I can't make rent on my own, he continues, eyes pleading. Could I crash here for a while? Just until I figure things out? I notice how quickly they've pivoted from defending their position to seeking more help. How quickly they've moved from dismissing my boundaries to trying to circumvent them entirely. I'm not your safety net anymore, I say, pulling a sheet of paper from beneath the stack. Here's a list of apartments in your budget. The application fee is $30. References are required. I hand it to him. He takes it, mouth slightly open. You can't be serious, my father says, his voice rising. After all we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, I ask. The question isn't bitter or angry. It's genuine curiosity. He doesn't answer. My mother stands abruptly, the dessert forgotten. We're still your parents, you can't just… I can, I say, and I am. They leave without touching the butterscotch pudding, their silence more telling than any argument. My father's shoulders slump in a way I've never seen before. My mother's lips press into a thin line. Ezra clutches the apartment list like it might dissolve in his hands. The door closes behind them with a soft click that echoes through the suddenly empty house. 1 week later, an envelope arrives bearing the letterhead of Abbott and Finnegan, attorneys at law. Inside, a vaguely worded letter claims my parents have shared occupancy rights due to their long-term residence. I forward it to the attorney I consulted before presenting the lease. Her response comes within hours. This has no legal standing whatsoever. They're grasping at straws. Standing at my kitchen window that evening, cup of tea warming my palms, I noticed something new in the yard of my parents' neighbor's house, a for rent sign, freshly planted in the well-kept lawn. I wonder if my family will choose relationship repair or continued entitlement. The answer, I suspect, is already taking root across the street. I know exactly what to do. The morning light streams through the tall windows of my loft, painting golden rectangles across the exposed brick wall. 3 months since I moved out of my house that my parents still occupy, now is paying tenants and into this open space across the river. The silence feels different here, purposeful rather than hollow. I run my fingers along the smooth concrete countertop I installed myself last weekend. No one helped me. No one criticized the slight unevenness at the corner. The accomplishment belongs entirely to me. My phone buzzes on the nightstand, and I notice the notifications have changed. No desperate text from Ezra about another failed job interview. No passive-aggressive reminders from Mom about family dinners I'm choosing to miss. Instead, Carol asking if I'm still on for tonight's photography class. Thomas sending a listing for a mid-century modern chair he spotted at an estate sale, and my new neighbor Janice confirming tomorrow's coffee. On my refrigerator hangs a calendar marked with my plans, not obligations to others. A weekend trip to Lake Superior next month. The pottery class I've wanted to take for years. Financial planning sessions for the investment property I'm considering. The absence of family crisis management has left room for growth I never knew was possible. The embossed envelope arrives that afternoon. My cousin Vicky's 25th anniversary celebration, 6 weeks from now. Before, I would have immediately rearranged my schedule, volunteered to handle decorations, and offered to drive my parents. I'd have spent weeks selecting the perfect gift, only to have Mom suggest, we all go in together, on something Ezra picked. Today, I select a lovely serving platter from my favorite artisan shop, write a sincere note, and mark the date with photography exhibit, final project due, in bold letters. I seal the package without a twinge of guilt. I decide where my energy goes now. I whisper to the empty room. The words feel strange on my tongue, but right in my heart. My worth no longer measured by what I provide to others, but by the balance I maintain between generosity and self-preservation. Later that evening, the loft fills with laughter. Carol raises her glass in the center of my new living room, surrounded by Thomas, Janice from downstairs, and the couple from 3B who helped me carry my couch up 4 flights when the elevator broke. To foundations that support rather than sink, Carol announces, her eyes meeting mine with understanding. These people choose to be here, expect nothing beyond my company, and offer the same in return. To chosen family, I add, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. The morning of my first Thanksgiving in the new space, I knead bread dough with flour-covered hands. The table is set for 6, none of them sharing my last name. My phone pings with a text from my mother. We miss who you used to be. My hands still over the dough. 6 months ago, these words would have sent me spiraling into guilt and self-doubt. Today, I see them for what they are: nostalgia for my compliance, not for me. I wipe my hands and type. You miss the version of me who never said no. She's gone. After sending the message, I place a yellow post-it note on my bathroom mirror, pressing firmly to make it stick. I owe myself the most. As I prepared to celebrate my first holiday season on my own terms, I wondered, does breaking unhealthy family patterns mean losing family altogether? Or is it the only way to build something genuine? What would you have done if you were in my place?